The notification from my lawyer lit up my phone screen as I sat in my workshop. Patent approved, case moving forward, they want to settle. I smiled, setting down the soldering iron. 3 months after being escorted out like a criminal, justice was finally catching up to the man who'd stolen my life's work. My name is David Chen. I'm 44 years old, and until 3 months ago, I was the Senior Product Development Engineer at Innovate Solutions, a mid-sized tech company specializing in industrial automation. For 12 years, I'd been their go-to problem solver, turning impossible client requests into breakthrough innovations. The meeting that destroyed my career started like any other product review. Richard Blackstone, our CEO, sat at the head of the conference table while I presented my latest creation, a revolutionary sensor system that could predict equipment failures days before they happened. "This is remarkable work, David," Richard said, studying the prototype I'd spent 8 months perfecting in my home workshop. "Preventive maintenance has been the holy grail of our industry for decades. The algorithm learns from vibration patterns, temperature fluctuations, and acoustic signatures," I explained, unable to hide my pride. "Early testing shows 94% accuracy in failure prediction. We're talking about saving manufacturers millions in downtime costs." Richard's eyes lit up with dollar signs. "What's the timeline for commercialization?" "I need another month to refine the user interface, then we can begin pilot testing. The patent application is ready to file." "Excellent. I want to showcase it at the Industrial Innovation Summit next month." What I didn't know was that Richard was already planning to make it his moment instead. The first sign something was wrong came the following Monday. I arrived at work to find my project files had been moved to a restricted server requiring special authorization. When I asked IT about it, they said the transfer had been ordered by Richard for security purposes. By Wednesday, I was locked out of my own development notes entirely. When I tried to discuss the situation with my supervisor, he seemed oddly evasive. "These things happen during patent review," Mike said, not meeting my eyes. "Legal probably wants all documentation properly secured." But I'd been through patent processes before, and this wasn't normal. Something was happening behind closed doors. That evening, I made a crucial decision. I went home and began documenting everything about my development process. Every prototype iteration, every failed experiment, every breakthrough moment. I photographed my workshop setup, gathered receipts for materials I'd purchased, and printed emails showing the timeline. 12 years in corporate engineering had taught me that brilliant inventors often got screwed by the people who signed their paychecks. 2 weeks later, I arrived at work to find my access card disabled. Sarah from security looked uncomfortable as she escorted me to Richard's office. "David, we need to discuss serious concerns that have come to light," Richard began, his tone completely different. "There are questions about the ownership of certain intellectual property you've been developing." "Questions?" I felt my stomach drop. "What kind of questions?" "We have reason to believe significant portions of the sensor system were developed using proprietary knowledge from your previous employer, MechTech Industries." My mouth went dry. "Richard, that's completely false. I left MechTech 8 years ago, and I've been developing this system entirely on my own time, using my own resources. Nevertheless, we cannot take the risk of patent infringement lawsuits. We're terminating your employment effective immediately." "This is insane. You've seen my development timeline. You know every iteration came from my own work." "The decision is final," Richard said coldly. "All materials related to the sensor project remain company property." As security escorted me to my desk, I noticed something chilling. Through Richard's office window, I could see him on the phone with my prototype, the one I'd built in my home workshop, sitting on his desk. They weren't just firing me, they were stealing my invention. That night, I sat in my home office trying to process what had happened. But as the shock wore off, cold anger began to set in. Richard had made a crucial mistake. He'd overlooked that I wasn't just a brilliant engineer, I was a methodical, paranoid engineer who'd learned to protect his work. I opened my secure file cabinet and pulled out the folder I'd hoped never to need. Inside were time-stamped photographs of every prototype stage, detailed development logs with dates, receipts for materials purchased with my own money, and most importantly, a provisional patent application I'd filed 6 months ago. I'd been prepared. The next morning, I called Patricia Reeves, an intellectual property attorney who specialized in corporate theft cases. "This is a very strong case," Patricia said after reviewing my documentation. "Your provisional patent clearly establishes prior art, and the development timeline shows continuous work over 8 months. The fact that they terminated you immediately after your presentation suggests consciousness of guilt. What are our options?" "We wait for them to commercialize your invention. Once they start marketing it as their own work, we have them dead to rights." 2 weeks later, Innovate Solutions announced a groundbreaking new product at the Industrial Innovation Summit. There was Richard on stage presenting my sensor system as his company's innovation. "I'm proud to introduce PredictorMax, a revolutionary predictive maintenance system developed by our world-class engineering team," he announced to the packed auditorium. I watched the live stream from my workshop, recording every word. He was using my exact technical specifications, my algorithm descriptions, even the same demonstration data. In his greed to claim credit, Richard was creating a permanent record of his theft, broadcasted to thousands of industry professionals. 3 days after the summit, Patricia and I filed our lawsuit: patent infringement, misappropriation of trade secrets, wrongful termination, and fraud. Richard's response came through his lawyers. "Mr. Chen's claims are baseless. All technology was developed by our internal team using company resources." It was exactly what we'd hoped for. By claiming complete ownership, Richard had set himself up perfectly. Discovery was devastating for them. Under court order, they had to produce all documentation related to the sensor system's development. They couldn't produce any evidence of development work before my presentation date. Meanwhile, I had hundreds of photos, detailed notes, purchase receipts, and timestamps proving continuous development over 8 months. The breakthrough came when we obtained Richard's email records. One email was particularly damning. "Now that we've removed the IP risk by terminating Chen, we can move forward with commercialization. With him gone, there's no one left who can challenge our ownership." Patricia smiled when she showed me that. "He's basically admitting they knew they were stealing your work." 6 months later, Richard's confidence cracked. PredictorMax was generating millions in pre-orders, but they couldn't fulfill them because none of their engineers understood how to manufacture the system properly. Without my knowledge, their production units were failing quality tests at a 70% rate. Major clients were cancelling orders. Stock price dropped 40%. That's when the settlement offers started. "They're panicking," Patricia explained. "They've got millions in pre-orders they can't fulfill, angry investors, and a federal judge who's skeptical of their ownership claims." "What are they offering?" "Full patent ownership, $2.5 million in damages, plus they want to license the technology from you to fulfill existing orders." The irony was beautiful. They wanted to pay me for the right to use my own stolen invention. The settlement was finalized in Patricia's conference room. Richard sat across from me, defeat written across his face. "We'd like to discuss Mr. Chen returning as a consultant," Richard said without looking at me, "to help with the manufacturing issues." I almost laughed. "I'm afraid I'm not available. I've accepted a position as Chief Innovation Officer at Advanced Automation Systems." Richard's face went pale. Advanced Automation was their biggest competitor. "Starting Monday, I'll be leading their new predictive technology division. We're planning to compete directly with PredictorMax using next-generation algorithms I've been developing." 1 year later, I stood in my new office holding the Industry Innovation Award for developing PredictorMax's successor, 30% more accurate and half the cost to manufacture. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Innovate Solutions Files. Chapter 11. Bankruptcy following patent settlement and failed product launch. I didn't feel satisfaction exactly, more like closure. Richard had taught me about protecting my work, and I'd taught him about respecting the people who create real value. Sometimes justice isn't about revenge, it's about making sure the right person gets credit for their work and letting natural consequences follow when thieves are exposed. My home workshop was busier than ever, filled with prototypes for my next breakthrough. This time, every component was properly documented, photographed, and legally protected from day one. Some lessons once learned are never forgotten.